Hello, my name is Kevin Creech. I am the chair of Wake County Democratic Party, and I am pleased to invite you to our final segment of our series featuring statewide contested primary candidates. We have a packed house this evening of candidates, and we know as the night goes on, more and more folks will pop into the audience. We are just really excited that you are here, and we thank everybody for their attention. So before we get started, I want to go over a few things, some reminders about what's coming up with regard to our primary elections. So early voting begins on the 15th of February and runs through March 2nd. We have 13 early voting sites here in Wake County. Photo ID is required. Here are some ballot particulars for you to know. Unaffiliated voters can choose any partisan ballot to complete. However, Democrats, Republicans, and Libertarians may only have partisan-specific ballots. Please make note of that. March 5th is our election day, and the polls are open from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. We don't have all of the candidates for each of the seats that we are featuring tonight, but we are providing information about all of them because we think it's important. So our candidates for Commissioner of Insurance are Mr. David Wheeler and North Carolina Senator Natasha Marcus. Our candidates for Superintendent of Public Instruction are Ms. C.R. Eddings, Mr. Keenan Crumble, and Mr. Mo Green. Our candidates for State Treasurer are Mr. Gabe Esparza and North Carolina Representative Wesley Harris. And our candidates for Supreme Court are Justice Allison Riggs and Judge Laura Cubbage. And with that, let me explain to you how we will go through. We are going to begin tonight with our North Carolina Supreme Court candidates and get to know them. They will answer some questions and they will have time to make personal remarks. The order of how folks go during their segment is random. So we randomized and chose who starts first. The person who starts first with the introduction and with the first question gets the privilege of going last and making the last comments at the end of their segment. So I want to be very, very clear about that. We are, again, very excited. So without further ado, let's get going and let's meet some Supreme Court candidates. So we've got Judge Laura Cubbage is with us today, and Nick is going to do an introduction for her. Nick Long, our first vice chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There, my camera is supposed to be coming on. Thank you. Judge Laura Cubbage is running for the Supreme Court. She often says that she is not just a candidate, but a stakeholder in this race. Judge Cubbage hails from the halls of NCA&T State University, where she received her undergraduate degree. She received her Juris Doctorate at UNC Chapel Hill School of Law. She has served the state of North Carolina for 18 years as an assistant district attorney, an assistant attorney general, as a district court judge, and now as a superior court judge. Judge Cubbage says she has presided over every type of case that the Supreme Court will review, including the complex business cases and the redistricting voting rights cases to which she was appointed by Chief Justice Cherry Beasley to handle. As a candidate for the Supreme Court, Judge Cubbage says this race is a natural progression in her career, and she knows that her life and professional experience has well prepared her for a position as Associate Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long. And now I will present some introductory information about Justice Riggs. It has been her tremendous honor to serve on the State Supreme Court of North Carolina since she was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper last year. She is excited for the opportunity to run for a full term on the court. Justice Riggs spent her entire career fighting for equal justice under the law for every person, regardless of wealth or skin color. Prior to her appointment to the State Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, she served as co-executive director for programs and chief counsel of voting rights at the Southern Coalition for Justice in Durham. For 14 years that she was there, she had the privilege of advocating for those who had been marginalized and discriminated against, arguing before the U.S. Supreme Court in several benchmark redistricting cases. Justice Riggs earned her bachelor's degree master's degree, and Juris Doctorate, all at the University of Florida. So what we will do next is we will allow our two candidates to be able to make opening remarks. Opening remarks are just 1 minute. Candidates, we do have a timer up in the right-hand corner of the screen. Hopefully you can both see. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Let's see here. And Michael, if you're able to get that going, there we go. So Michael will run that for us. And when you begin speaking is when the timer will go off. So the first person actually that we drew, Justice Riggs, you are going to be going first for your intro, which means that you will also be going first for the first question. And Judge Cubbage, you will be going second for the intro, and then you will answer the same question that Justice Riggs answers second. So, Justice Riggs, are you ready? Very well. All right, Michael, if you would start the timer, please.
I don't. Okay. Good evening, Wake County Democrats. Sorry about that. It's so good to be with you all tonight. As Kevin so kindly introduced, I'm Justice Allison Riggs, your newest Supreme Court Justice, but someone who's been in community with Wake County voters my entire time in North Carolina, which is pushing 16 years now. I, in fact, lived in Wake County for 10 years, but have been based out of the Triangle my entire time, and have been privileged to work with so many leaders in Wake County to fight against gerrymandering, voter suppression, for environmental justice and economic justice, and against criminal injustice. I came to North Carolina to work with Justice Anita Earls at the nonprofit that she founded, and now I'm pleased to be pushing open the doors to the courthouse from the inside.
Thank you very much. Well done. And candidates, as a reminder, if you are in the middle of a sentence, when the timer goes off, please finish your sentence. So next, we will hear from Judge Laura Cubbage. Judge Cubbage, are you with us? Okay. Not sure what's happening there. Judge Cubbage. All right. If somebody would please do a little bit of outreach in the background and see if we can see if Judge Cubbage needs some assistance. So we will keep right on moving because we do have a really packed show this evening. We're going to go ahead and start with the initial question for the evening. The topic is motivation for running. It is a 2-minute topic, so you have up to 2 minutes to answer. And Michael Abasevich, who is our organizing director, will present the question. And as soon as that happens, if you need him to repeat, that's fine. Otherwise, the timer will begin when you begin.
All right. Excuse me. Motivation for running. This is a 2-minute question. Please detail why you decided to run or rerun for North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice. What are your motivations and priorities?
So, Michael, I thank you for the question. I spent nearly 15 years litigating for civil rights in federal court and state court. As the federal courts took a turn for a little bit more conservative and regressive, we turned to state constitutions because state constitutions provide a fulsome right for North Carolinians greater than the federal constitution. And I had a real awakening after, I loved my job. I loved being a civil rights litigator, representing folks who otherwise wouldn't have had representation. But I recognized that after we lost our state appellate courts in the November 22 election, that I needed to be willing to answer a call and serve in a different way. And so When asked, I stepped up to serve on the North Carolina Court of Appeals and to help spark a movement to win back our courts for justice in this state. Every Democratic candidate running for the appellate judiciary lost in 2020 and 2022. We won in 2018, so Justice Earls was onto something, but we had to do things differently. We had to work together differently. And so I stepped up to serve on the Court of Appeals and be a part of a team of judicial candidates, not just running, but serving. And served for 9.5 months, had the opportunity to build bridges, write nearly 50 appellate opinions that I had to, because Democrats are outnumbered, get Republicans to vote with me. And so when asked to step up and serve on the North Carolina Supreme Court and with my mentor, Justice Earls, I continue to rise to the challenge of doing things differently and making sure that we produce different results for the people of North Carolina, especially those who come into our courts.
Thank you so much, Justice Riggs. Judge Cubbage, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please. And my apologies, you guys. I am actually having a fundraiser, so I just stepped to the side to do this.
All good. Totally understand needing to run for office. So the first question is in regards to your motivation for running. So in 2 minutes or less, please detail why you decided to rerun for North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice. What are your motivations and
Blessed be endorsed by any number.
Well, my motivations for running, guys, is because one, it's a natural progression in my career. That's for starters. I have served on the district court bench and the superior court bench. And I have presided over and handled every type of case that the Supreme Court is going to review, including your voting, your redistricting cases, your environmental and your land cases, and your estate cases. I'm running because of my expertise and my experience. I have 18 years of legal experience, 8 years on the judiciary. And again, I've presided over every type of case that the Supreme Court is going to hear. I'm running because we need someone with a proven track record as we begin to take back our courts. And I believe that my track record has been proven. I've won 2 elections. In 2020, we all lost. The Republicans did sweep, but I was the top vote getter, pulling in 2.6 million votes. I've ran a statewide election. I know how to run an election. I know how to go to where the voters are. What I do agree with Justice Riggs is that we've got to do things different. And the problem with this election is that people aren't coming to the polls. It's a simple numbers thing. And so what I'm doing is going to where the people are, whether it be the courtroom, the boardroom, or people's living rooms, whether it be the best neighborhood or the worst neighborhood, to make sure that the people understand that their vote is their voice and their voice matters. And we need them at the polls this year, more critical than any other year ever. I'm running because I'm the only candidate that can bring the trial court judge perspective to the bench. None of our justices has ever sat on a trial court. They've never presided over any trials. They've never presided over any cases. They've never interpreted and applied the law in trial cases. And that is what the Supreme Court reviews. The Supreme Court has 1 or 2 cases of redistricting and voting every couple of years, but they have 90% of cases that come from the trial court. Yet there's no trial court judge there that can actually tell them what happened in that trial court
Thank
case
you very
and has
much.
actually done the work.
Time's up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
All right, we're going to move right along to the second topic and question. For this one, we will hear from Judge Cubbage first and Justice Riggs second. Nick Long, our first vice chair, is going to present it. The topic is judicial system infrastructure. Nick?
Judge Cubbage, we realize that the Code of Judicial Ethics prohibits you from being able to comment on any cases which are likely to appear before you. However, the judiciary also handles some other matters in North Carolina. The administrative of the courts is in the process of converting the statewide computer system used by the courts. Under the current Chief Justice, the eCourts project is millions of dollars over budget at least 2 years behind schedule and still rife with problems, to the point that only 5 counties have been allowed to start. What can other appellate judges do to correct this situation?
What can appellate judges do? Well, what I would think that they could do is they could get the training first, and then they could come in. We're actually getting ready to embark on trying to get the system placed here in Guilford County. And I can tell you that even before we went to training, that we're having problems. But I think the appellate judges could probably get the training first and then come and be of help, because what we're having to do is look at videos versus getting hands-on training until the process is being completely implemented. I think there's a need to, I don't know if the appellate courts could do this, if there's a need to hire folks that are going to come in and give the judges hands-on training to do this system, because we still have to work while this system is getting implemented, and it's kind of trial and error as we're going through. Now, Guilford County will start, I think, in the middle of March, but I've had the pleasure of going over to Mecklenburg and sitting with them as they implemented the system, and it actually seemed to go pretty well. So I think that the appellate courts get more involved with hands-on training with the system as it comes into implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Cubbage. Judge Riggs, would you like for me to repeat the question?
No, sir. So the judicial ethics canons prohibit us from speaking on pending cases, and there is a pending lawsuit on the e-courts rollout. But we are, as sitting judges, allowed to speak about issues of judicial administration. And in fact, I think we're called upon as leaders to talk about where there have been issues. Wake County was one of the first counties to roll out e-courts. I got to spend some time with district court candidates and district court judges in Western Wake just last week, and got to hear about some of their frustrations with the rollout of e-courts. I don't think we get anywhere by pretending things have been going according to plan. Now, North Carolina has been decades behind in having a trial court electronic filing system. I've litigated in states across the South. That Florida has been way ahead of North Carolina. That always gives me pause. But it is something that's critically important for access for justice. It's critically important for cost control for folks who are economically challenged. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't say and ask how e-courts implementation can be better. Some of the bigger counties have experienced challenges, obviously because of size. But I advocate for transparency and how e-courts is implemented and rolled out. I think we need more of that transparency so folks can understand how these decisions are being made. And I don't think that violates the judicial canons for me to say that.
Thank you so much. Y'all both did so well. We're going to move on to our third topic. The topic is core beliefs and judicial opinions. This will be a 2-minute question with some opening information to consider. Michael will present this question. Michael, oh, sorry. And Justice Riggs, you will start.
Core beliefs shape our worldview, and our worldviews provide the lens through which we make evaluations and decisions. While judges are supposed to act according to the facts presented to them, current statutes, and precedent, North Carolina has recently returned to partisan judicial races. Over the last several years, we have seen overt partisan decisions and behavior at both the appellate and Supreme North Carolina courts. The question is, reflecting on your own worldview, how does it come to bear on your evaluation and decision-making process on the bench? How does a judge balance their mores, ethics, and core beliefs with making impartial, fair decisions?
Thank you, Michael. So first, I think it's important for judges to talk about their values. I think it's important for voters to know what our core beliefs are. For example, I know because of my work, democracy doesn't defend itself. It requires judges on the bench who are willing to enforce constitutional protections, regardless of what's popular on Jones Street or not. Same thing with reproductive rights and education, just to name a few. It is, I think, a question of methodology and intellectual commitment to going through a process in order to make sure that our values aren't inappropriately affecting our decision-making. Justice Jackson in her confirmation hearing talked about having a political methodology rather than a philosophy. And we get on the appellate courts, obviously get a lot of cases, a lot of close calls. I'm committed to starting with a rigorously undecided opinion, reading all of the arguments, trying to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each. And through that, also remembering that there are human beings involved in the cases before us. There are attorneys who have worked hard and represent clients and people who have a lot at stake. So treating the people who come before us with the utmost respect and dignity signals not only our values, but is an important indicator of impartiality. And so notwithstanding the decision to move back to partisan elections in the late 2010s, it's important to me to balance talking about our values and being open and transparent about how I tackle really hard issues on our appellate courts.
And Michael, could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Judge Cubbage, the question was, reflecting on your own worldview, how does it come to bear on your evaluation and decision-making process on the bench? How does a judge balance their morals, ethics, and core beliefs with making impartial, fair decisions?
I would say, so I think that we all come with implicit biases, right? And so we have to learn how to set those to the side. For me, over the last 8 years, I've had very, I believe I've confirmed in the fact that I look at a case holistically. I think it's important to talk about our values as a judge. I think it's important to dig into our values when we're looking at these cases. One thing that makes it better for me is a lot of the things that I see that come before me, I've lived through, so I understand it. And I think the benefit of having a trial court judge and a trial court judge on the Supreme Court and a justice that has actually lived through these experiences, they can see it from a holistic point of view and understand it's not just a black and white thing, but there's many dynamics and factors that go in it. For instance, I live in a community where we fought for the city not to expand the landfill that was already in our backyard. I've had to make the decision on reproductive rights due to a violation of a family member against me. So I understand the cases when they come before me from a real life perspective. I understand it from a legal perspective. I understand the complexities that govern the case. And I think that by looking at the case from those different perspectives, that we can make a well-informed decision based on those things. And I think it's important. It's important to have a judge that has that experience, that has been there, especially for the last 8 years, like I have, that has lived through a lot of the issues that come before us because you understand it.
Thank you very much. All right, well done, both of you. We are going to move to the next question. This one will be a 1-minute question, 1 minute. and I will be presenting it. It is candidate's choice. Judge Cubbage, you will lead on this one, and Justice Riggs, you will go second. Here is the question. Please use the next minute to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue that is central to your candidacy. So I want to hear about an issue that is central to your candidacy, and you get 1 minute. The timer will begin when you begin to speak.
An issue that is central to my candidacy is that every single election, rights are stripped, rights are threatened, rights are taken. And it's more than just one issue. And when these rights are stripped, taken, or threatened, the statistics, not Judge Cubbage, the statistics show that they affect the Black and brown community the most. They affect the marginalized community the most. I am the marginalized community. It doesn't matter that I wear a Black robe. It doesn't matter that I have a title. When these rights get stripped, they affect me and everyone that I love and everyone that I'm fighting for. And it is my responsibility to bring my community, my family, and my state together and fight to keep those protections in place that we've already fought so hard for. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. All right, Justice Riggs, candidate's choice, 1 minute. Tell us in as much detail as you can an issue that is central to your candidacy.
Things that's been very important to me over the last 13, 14 months as I've campaigned across the state is making sure that we're lifting each other up as judicial candidates. Too often, judicial races get siloed, and I think that's part of the reason why folks don't know about. It's noisy out there. They don't know about who's running for the Court of Appeals, who's running for the Supreme Court. And what it's going to take to win back our courts. So I'm prioritizing articulating this plan to win back our courts, to lift up the wonderful candidates running for our North Carolina Court of Appeals, Judge Carolyn Thompson, Ed Eldred, Martin Moore, because we don't take back our courts unless we start making progress on the Court of Appeals. My seat is the only seat up in 24. Justice Earls is the only seat up in 26. But in 2028, if we be strategic, we can win the 3 Republican seats that year and take back our courts.
Thank you very much. Here to both of you. And I will say here in Wake County, we've been working really hard to make sure our district courts get covered. There's that. All right, we are going to transition into the closing remarks. That went fast, didn't it, ladies? So because Justice Riggs had to answer the questions first, she gets the privilege of going last. But we're going to hear from Judge Laura Cubbage. Judge Cubbage, you have 2 minutes to close out for the evening. When you begin talking, the timer will start. Judge Cubbage.
Well, thank you guys for the opportunity to come on and share my passion for my run for the candidacy. I am the only candidate with the expertise and experience and has already served in the judicial role for the last 8 years. I've presided over every single type of case that the Supreme Court is going to review, to include your redistricting and your voting cases. I'm the only candidate that's ever ran an election. I'm the only candidate that's ever won an election with winning 2. Again, I pulled in 2.6 million votes in 2020 as a top vote getter, so I know how to run. And when we're talking about taking back our courts, all of that is important. It's very important that a trial court perspective is on that bench. And it's very important that there's already someone out here that knows how to run a campaign and knows how to win a campaign that's already connectable and resonates with the people. I've been in the communities, like I said, in the trenches, going to where the voters are, not waiting for the voters to come to me. And I'm the only candidate that's done that. We have to remember as Democrats that when Justice Earls won in 2018, she won because someone changed their party at the last minute. Her race was close, and that's how we don't have that dynamic in 2026. The primary is now back in 2026. So we need to try to retain these Democratic seats and get voters to the polls. That's the plain and simple plan of taking back our courts. And we have to know how to do that. I have a proven track record of my experience, my expertise, and my ability to win. And so I think I think at this time, I appreciate Justice Riggs's work, but I believe at this time that the more experienced and more qualified candidate is the candidate that is going to be able to hold this seat, not only in the primary, but also in the general. And I think that at this time, I'm the most qualified candidate to hold the seat, which is why I'm running as fervently as I am running. And so I ask you to consider me when you're making your selection on March the 5th.
Thank you very much. Well said. All right, Justice Riggs, you have 2 minutes to make your closing remarks. When you begin speaking, the timer will begin.
Thank you, Wake Democrats, for your engagement, for caring about this election and caring about our courts, district court all the way up. It has been the honor of a lifetime to serve on our appellate judiciary since January 1st of 2023, and to bring to bear the 14 years I spent before that serving people who otherwise wouldn't have had representation in a court of law. That is the training, the perspective that I bring to the bench, and it allows me, I think, to be particularly empathetic and compassionate. And my experience in the top courts in this country, including arguing in front of the United States Supreme Court, indicate that I'm well prepared as an appellate advocate and as an appellate attorney to understand the challenges facing our citizens in our appellate courts. What's at stake is obviously not just this November, but I've worked with the gentleman who will have the Republican nomination. He is a Court of Appeals judge who has, in written opinion, said that there is no racial discrimination in the criminal justice system, who has said that life begins at conception, such that the state can take away a child from a mother before that child is even born. The stakes couldn't be higher in November. And so I humbly ask for your support as I work closely with Justice Earls to make sure that we win in 2024, that we're lifting up the candidates who will be well positioned to challenge those Republican incumbents in 2028, and we win back our courts before the next round of regular redistricting and make this state work for the people.
Thank you very much. Well said. I would like to thank both of you for spending your time with us this evening. And I want to wish you both the best of luck. One thing I say to all candidates is stay hydrated, drink lots and lots of water. What you are doing is amazing. You are amazing. This is not for the faint of heart. You've already been serving North Carolina admirably, regardless of how it shakes out in the primary. Please know that your work and your time is appreciated. And on that note, we are going to transition to our next segment. We will be featuring Mr. Mo Green, who is running for the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Please note we have 3 candidates running for that. Besides Mr. Green, we have Mr. Keenan Crumble, and we have Ms. C.R. Katie Eddings also running for that position. We will ensure to provide information about all of the candidates on our Election Central page at wakedems.org. Right now, though, we want to begin with Mr. Green, and I believe Nick Long, who is our first vice chair, is going to provide us some introductory information about Mr. Green. So, Nick, are you ready?
I am, Madam Chair.
Fantastic. And while we're waiting for that, if somebody could make sure that Mo Green is elevated to where he can unmute and speak with us as a panelist. Thank you.
Mo Green has strived to be a champion for North Carolina public education throughout his professional career. His career is long and broad and includes serving as superintendent of the Guilford County School System. He served as deputy superintendent and general counsel for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. He was the executive director of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, which awards millions in grants to educational causes. And he's been a board of director or commission member of organizations that deal with various education issues, including homelessness, athletics, policy, media, arts, and community support. Mo Green began his career as a lawyer in private practice after 2 United States judicial clerkships. He has a bachelor's degree in political science and economics and a law degree, both from Duke University. Mo is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha and Sigma Phi Phi fraternities. Mo, a longtime North Carolina resident, is married and has 2 adult children. Mo's top 3 priorities are to advocate for North Carolina investing fully in its public education system, to advocate for substantial increases in base pay for all public school educators, and to deploy targeted resources and strategies to support lower performing schools and school systems while implementing policies and strategies that improve the academic achievement of all students.
Thank you so much, Mr. Long. All right, and now we will hear from Mr. Mo Green. Hello, sir. How are
Hello.
you?
All right, how are you doing this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. We're going to give you 1 minute to make some opening remarks. There is a timer. I don't know if you're able to see that. Michael, can you put the timer up for Mr. Green? Maybe he can see it. Can you see the timer?
I can. Looks like
Very
it's
well.
already started.
Oh, Michael will restart it for you. He just wanted to show you. All right, so you have 1 minute to make opening remarks, and when you begin talking, the timer will begin.
Excellent. Thank you. And good evening to everyone. Sorry I could not be in a better position than I am in tonight, but I'm at another event. My name is Maurice Green. I do go by Mo, and I am running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I believe we're at a place where we're witnessing the dismantling of public education, brick by precious brick, when you look at funding and other issues. And so I believe that there needs to be a strong voice against that, a voice with a new vision. I certainly believe I have great experience having served as superintendent of Guilford County Schools for 7+ years, deputy superintendent of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, as well as general counsel there, served as the executive director for the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation for 7 years, and also served on many, many boards that focus on educational issues. Look forward to the conversation this evening.
All right, thank you so much. And just a note to you that if you are speaking and you hear the timer go off, feel free to complete your sentence. So we said that earlier, but I don't know if you were here for that. All right, we're going to get right into the topics and questions. Nick Long will start off with the first question, and the topic is motivation for running. You will have up to 2 minutes to answer this question. Nick?
Mr. Green, this is a 2-minute question. Please tell us why you decided to run for Superintendent of Public Instruction. What are your motivations and priorities?
Right. So I decided to run for this position because I'm concerned about the direction of North Carolina public schools. I'm worried about it being dismantled brick by precious brick, as I like to say. When you look at funding in North Carolina, we are at or near the bottom with regards to funding. When you look at funding effort, there was a report that came out in 2022 that placed North Carolina at the absolute bottom. When you think about funding, paying our teachers, we're not doing well there either. And the one thing that really sort of stuck with me then was, even while we're at the bottom, we're now going to expand the voucher program for students to go to private schools, including those who can afford to go there, already made that choice for their families. That was my motivation for getting it. I also felt then that it's insufficient to simply talk about concern, but rather also then where do we want to go? And I wanted to put forward a vision that focuses on excellence and uses a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that is, intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. That is what we used when I was superintendent of Guilford County Schools, and would want to bring that to the entire state as well. So that we're lifting up not only knowledge acquisition, but character development. When I was superintendent in Guilford County Schools, we became a national district of character because we focused on that while we elevated student achievement to record levels. So that's the motivation of why I've decided to run, certainly the concerns, but then also trying to be sure that there's a vision we can, really sort of approach. And the vision really is we ought to be the best in the entire country with regards to public education system.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask that you lean in a little bit when you're talking, just so you know, you have a very melodious voice, and when you go low, we can't hear you for just a split second. So please be aware of that. All right, we're going to move on to the next topic, which is Leandro. And every time I say the word Leandro, in the back of my head, I hear bum, bum, bum. And our second vice chair, John McLam, is going to read an opening portion and then the question. This is a 2-minute question. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are concerned about the ability of every child in North Carolina to receive a fair and equitable education. The children who were plaintiffs in the Leandro case are in their mid-30s and have children of their own in North Carolina public schools, yet no money has been shifted to lower income counties for their schools. Question: what will you do to level the playing field to meet the constitutional right of all children to a sound basic education?
Great, thank you. And I should just provide a bit of context. I have been with the Leandro litigation for over 20 years myself as the attorney in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools was one of the entities that joined the lawsuit. I also appeared before Judge Manning when I was superintendent of Guilford County Schools. And with the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, we actually fund the low wealth plaintiffs in that litigation and actually provided resources for the independent consultant to do the report that indicated that billions of dollars are due to our public schools. So with that context then, and then combine that with my experience of running the third largest district in the state, I believe you got to take existing resources. If the court cannot sort of force the folks to get the money into our public schools, you got to take existing resources, find the grants and other things, and really start to begin to redesign how you fund public education for those students who are not receiving the resources that they so desperately need. In Guilford County Schools, we've created our own sort of zone focused on lower performing schools that need those additional resources. And we provided additional resources in the classroom, in the building, and then surrounding the building as well. And so that's the kind of thing that we would try to do with the resources that exist now, working with the State Board of Education, working with local districts. But certainly if we can advocate for and must advocate for additional funding so we can do that with state dollars, as opposed to trying to find dollars elsewhere to make that happen. That is something that I have lots of experience with. As we moved, we had the most low performing schools in the state. We eliminated them all with this strategy.
Thank you very, very much. We are now going to move on to the next topic. I will be presenting the topic and the question. This will also be a 2-minute question once it gets to you. The topic is charter schools. Under alternative choices on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, charter schools are listed first. And these public schools of choice are authorized by the State Board of Education, and they were supposed to serve more or less as educational laboratories to uncover best practices, which then could be implemented throughout NC's public schools. As charter schools use public money, but were free of many of the regulations that regular public schools had, the number of charter schools was capped at 100. The North Carolina legislature did away with the charter school cap several years ago. Here's the question. Since then, the number of charter schools have gone way up, along with independent nonprofit boards governing them and for-profit companies operating them. While some charter schools exceed public school outcomes, most do not, and many fail. Since the legislature is not likely to move away from charter schools, what steps would you take as superintendent of public instruction to be sure that charter schools are providing the level of education we expect from traditional public schools? Do you need me to repeat that?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you.
2 minutes.
So, again, I want to provide a bit of context before answering the question. So certainly lots of experience working with and discussing issues around charter schools. I was in favor of keeping the cap in place and then incrementally raising it when certain metrics were reached, particularly around student achievement, certainly. And then certainly when I was superintendent of Guilford County Schools, we looked to a charter school that was doing some innovative work that we then used to create a preparatory middle school in Guilford County. So I'm not opposed to charter schools, but I do believe that there should be limitations placed around them, and they should be back to that mission that you read, really focused on that. Now, having said that, then I believe that we actually need to work with the State Board of Education and the General Assembly to put a moratorium actually on charter schools until we can get to a place where we can actually begin to roll back this dramatic expansion of charter schools. Short of getting that in place, then I believe we've got to, try to really encourage charter schools to serve all children, particularly those who, have special needs, need transportation, need food services provided for them, so that we're actually using the charter school in a way that's benefiting all children like traditional public schools. Finally, I believe you got to hold charter schools just as accountable as traditional schools. So I would certainly be in favor of removing ineffective leaders in charter schools, just as I did when I was superintendent of Guilford County Schools. We've got to hold them to the same levels of accountability, notwithstanding the fact that they may not be in the same sort of makeup as traditional public schools.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move to the final topic for this segment. It is a candidate's choice topic. It will be a 2-minute question for you, and Nick Long is going to ask it. Thanks, Nick.
Mr. Green, please take the next 2 minutes and discuss with us in as much detail as you can an issue that is central to your candidacy that you've not talked about before.
So I would love to talk about this. I touched on it, but I want to just bring it up some more. And that is around excellence, and then combine that with celebrating the good in public education. One of the things that I don't believe really do well, even those who are advocates of public education, is celebrate all of the amazing things that are going on. And I think gives others the opportunity to talk about, well, it's how horrible public schools actually are. And so one of the pillars that I have is actually celebrating the good in public education. And that leads me then back to then this concept of excellence. I like to use a few examples when I talk about excellence. I mentioned one being a National District of Character in Guilford County Schools. Another would be, we led a school turnaround to a place of getting from 41% of the kids performing on grade level on end of course exams to over 90%, to have 100% graduation rates, to have 100% of those students actually be accepted to a college or university. And that school be all male and be all African-American male. When you think about where African-American males show up, often at the bottom with regards to academic outcomes, we can really achieve excellence if we so desire. You look at Guilford County Schools, the #1 elementary school by U.S. News and World Report, Guilford County Schools. #1 middle school in the state, Guilford County Schools. The #2 high school in the state, Guilford County Schools. The #1 high school in the state of Guilford County Schools. The #1 high school in the entire country is the Guilford County Schools. We can talk about excellence. We can deliver on it if we put our minds to it. And then we ought celebrate along the way. Those was what I'd like to, thank you for giving me 2 minutes to talk about those things.
Thank you very much. All right. So we are about to come to the end of your segment. And I want to thank you so much for being with us here this evening. What you're going to be able to do is use the next 2 minutes to make your closing statement. And you know the drill by now. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to you, Mr. Green, and let us know what you want to leave us with. 2 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to leave you with three things. One is a sincere thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Number two, to talk about pillars that undergird this concept of excellence. And so the pillars are fully funding public education, certainly revering educators, and revere because I want something much more than just respect. So more. Providing each student for what they need using differentiated resources. Certainly want to have safe and secure learning environments. Certainly want to have us, again, celebrate the good in public education, engage parents and community along the way. And then third, I want to talk a little bit about endorsements. I've been so blessed to receive so many endorsements, including from former governors Jim Hunt and Bev Perdue, to include also the North Carolina Association of Educators, to include June Atkinson, former state superintendent of public instruction, Bill Harrison, former state board of education chairman, to include former superintendents and current superintendents across this, to include certainly organizations like the Simpkins Political Action Committee, the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, the People's Alliance. The list is long. It includes U.S. representatives, former and current. So pleased and blessed to receive that. I do believe that I have the experience, given my role as a former superintendent of one of the largest districts in the state, also the attorney for a school district, deputy superintendent, and then also, working with a foundation and leading that focus on public education. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. And again, thank you for being with us this evening. I know that you are out there pounding the pavement as our other candidates, so please stay hydrated, keep in touch, and stay safe this evening. It's going to get really, really cold.
Thank you. Y'all be blessed.
Thanks. All right, so we're getting ready to transition to our next segment, and we will be speaking to our candidates for Commissioner of Insurance. I want to make sure that we have, I see Senator Natasha Marcus right there. I want to make sure that we have Mr. Wheeler available. Can't quite see everything. Oh, I see him. There he is. Fantastic. All right. So moving right along, we've got these two wonderful candidates with us this evening. We've got Senator Natasha Marcus, and then we've got Mr. David Wheeler. And we will be providing some introductory information about these candidates. Just so you know, candidates, when I did the drawing, Senator Marcus, you will be the first person to give your opening statement and answer the first question. And then Mr. Wheeler, you will be the second person to give your statement and then answer the question. And that means that, let me see here, Senator Marcus, you will be able to go last when it comes time for closing statements. And with no further ado, I am going to introduce Senator Natasha Marcus, who is running for Commissioner of Insurance. So, Senator Marcus has a BA in Public Policy from Hamilton College and a law degree from Duke University. She's been on the front lines of community work for decades, including Moral Monday protests, gun violence prevention, Habitat for Humanity builds, marches in support of women's rights and Black Lives Matter, volunteering at the local free clinic, leading volunteers on the Obama and Clinton campaigns, and organizing voter registration drives. She also mentors young women who are interested in seeking elected office. After law school, Natasha lived, practiced law, and clerked for a judge in Greensboro. She moved to Davidson in 2007, where she worked at a local nonprofit community center prior to taking office. Natasha has two adult daughters, Ellie, who is a teacher, and Madison, who is a PhD scientist. Senator Marcus serves on several committees, including Commerce and Industry, Judiciary, Redistricting, and Education. She is a leader in her caucus and a strong advocate for affordable health insurance, public schools, reproductive freedom, clean energy, common sense gun safety reform, fair elections, better wages for working people, environmental policies to combat climate change. And she is a 3-term state senator from Mecklenburg County. So welcome. And next we'll hear, I believe Mr. Long will be presenting some information about Mr. David Wheeler. Nick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Wheeler enjoys big challenges. David produced a marathon in Antarctica, lowered the Mississippi River, and developed the first presidential cancer forum on MSNBC. David is a single father of 3 young lieutenant's kids and lives with them in Spruce Pine. During 2018 and 2020 Break the Supermajority campaigns, David was asked by Governor Cooper to run against the worst senator in North Carolina, Ralph Hayes. Hayes is also known as Mr. HB2. David knew he would not be able to win, but made Hayes spend 10 times what he spent in prior elections by relentlessly holding him accountable. David announced his candidacy for the commissioner in February 2023 and has been learning and listening to Democrats over the last year while he traveled 20,000 miles throughout the state. David has popularized the moniker Rate Hike Mike after the current and last Republican to hold the office of treasurer. David has personally researched and exposed Rate Hike Mike's past as a deadbeat dad, bouncing a $15,000 check, and 2 bankruptcy. David knows more about Rate Hike Mike than Rate Hike Mike knows about himself. And for this reason, David can beat him in November. Finally, David is the only candidate that has a plan to refocus DOI on the people and has support from staff of Democratic Commissioners Wayne Goodwin and Jim Long.
Thank you so much, Mr. Long. I don't know if you're related to Jim Long, but I just needed to point that out. Thank you very much. All right. So we are going to go into the topics and questions portion, and the first one will be presented by Nick Long, no relations to Jim Long, I don't think. And it will have to do with motivation for running, and it will be a 2-minute question. I don't know if you heard me say this earlier, but there's a timer. It's going to be at the upper right hand of your screen, or it should be. If you are in the middle of a sentence when it goes off, please finish your sentence. So Nick, are you ready?
I am, Madam Chair, and I'm only kin to Jim Long when I'm running for office in Person County.
Awesome. All right. Well, Senator Marcus is going to be the person to begin this question section. All right.
Senator Marcus, in 2 minutes or less, tell us why you decided to run for insurance commissioner. What are your motivations and priorities?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for that. Everyone, hello, Wake County Dems. I feel funny jumping right into answering a question without introducing myself, but I will do that since we have limited time. During my time in the Senate, I have been proud to be a strong advocate for the values that I think we all on this call share. You listed some of them. Those things matter to me. Public policy, to me, it's what I got my undergraduate degree in, and I think I'm very good at being a strong advocate. I don't back down. I'm not afraid of tough Republicans. I deal with them every day, and I present the facts and represent the people who did me. And I want to keep doing that. What they did to me, because I'm such a strong advocate, is they gerrymandered me out of my seat. They targeted certain legislators, Jeff Jackson, myself, Lisa Grafstein, for example, and drew me into a very red district. And so my options, if I want to continue public service to the state of North Carolina, were many. And I decided on this one because I believe we need a strong Democrat with a strong record and a litigation background to hold Mike Causey accountable and oust him from the Council of State. He's been there too long. Ask Wayne Goodwin, our former commissioner of insurance, a good Democrat, and Jim Long before him, who's now unfortunately passed. The way to do commissioner of insurance and represent the people of North Carolina is to hold public hearings and work for the people, not insurance companies.
And that's what I want to do. That's what I'm good at doing, being responsive to people. I don't take PAC donations. I take donations from individuals, and I have a reputation for being very responsive as a legislator. And I want to do that as well as serve on the Council of the State to support our next Democratic governor as well, and be a vote in on the Democratic side there. The people of North Carolina deserve transparency. They deserve a rep will work for them at the Commissioner of Insurance.
Thank you, Senator Marcus. Mr. Wheeler, in 2 minutes, please tell us why you decided to run for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner. What is your motivation and priority?
Well, thank you, Mr. Long, and thank you, Ms. Kevin. My primary motivation for getting into the race is it's not about me, and it's not about my future or a title. It's about the folks of North Carolina. I think we're getting screwed left and right by the insurance companies. I believe rate hike Mike is in way over his head. That's obvious. And I want to focus the office on keeping rates down as low as possible, keeping rates affordable, ensuring everyone is treated fairly, and rid this office of its ugly racist past. There's a problem with hiring. There's a problem with the arrests within this department. And on day one, I'm going to put a mandate out that we're going to put a halt on all arrests at DOI until we figure out why 66% of the arrests there are African Americans. That is not consistent with most of the facts and data across the country, and I'm going to fix that. During my adult life, I've been a paralegal, and I helped low-income folks with greedy insurance companies, and also led a nonprofit corporation as chairman, non-paid chairman, to bring telehealth to 225 schools all across North Carolina in rural counties. And I'm very proud of that record. We also opened up telehealth for mental telehealth as well as physical health in 2 prisons up here in Western North Carolina. Very proud of that effort and proud to have been chairman of that. I also enjoy a big challenge, as you mentioned. My first campaign was Jimmy Carter at 10 years old in 1976. And I helped Senator Obama as an advanced team member in 2007 and early supporter of President Biden.
Thank you so much. All right, moving right along, we are going to go to the next topic, which is Chief Fire Marshal, and Michael Abasevich, our organizing director, will be presenting this. This is a 2-minute question that he's going to ask. Of course, we will start with Mr. Wheeler, and then after that, we will hear from Senator Marcus. Michael, the floor is yours.
Mr. Wheeler, the most recent legislative session removed the role of Chief Fire Marshal from the Commissioner of Insurance and set up a separate office for this position without any discussion or debate as a line item in the budget bill. Do you think this was the right move? And what steps will you take as Insurance Commissioner to protect North Carolinians from the risk of fires?
Great question. Thank you. And one of high interest to me. First of all, yes, I think it was the right thing to do because Rate Hike Mike was using that office for his own political needs. He would take these checks, big old fake checks out to fire departments and present them, even though he had nothing to do with the money that was raised. And it was allocated by the legislature, not him. I know the guys, the 2 gentlemen that are running it, Brian Taylor and Mike Williams, the current fire marshal and assistant state fire marshal, and they're terrific folks. They are professional firefighters, and that's what the leadership of that organization ought to be. Politics should not be involved in the state fire marshal's office whatsoever. It should be about safety. It should be about training local fire departments, and it should be about getting these grants out to folks without regard to politics. And I'm committed to work with the legislature on a bipartisan basis to try and get this office back get that office back under the purview of DOI, only because I think there is a nexus between insurance rates and how the State Fire Marshal's office is run. So I've had discussions with members of the legislature already. I met, and hold on to your hat, but yes, I met with some GOP folks and talked about how we could bring this office back into DOI. Now, they're not going to do it if the current commissioner is reelected. I can promise you that. They're actually going to gut it further. They're going to take more responsibility away from Rate Hike Mike. And that's one of the reasons I think you need to take a quick look at me, or a long look if you'd like. I have a face for radio, but take a long look and see whether I'm your candidate, because I will work on a bipartisan basis to make sure safety is paramount in North Carolina. And I love this timer. Thank you guys very much. It's very helpful.
You're very welcome. It's a little bit of a juggling act. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Senator Marcus, same question to you. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, I think I understand the question. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so just a little context that I think is historically it made sense to combine the jobs into one position. You know, insurance and fire safety are closely related and connected. But that said, I see good reasons to be independent and expert firefighter as the state fire marshal. I think the timing and the political motivation change was unfortunate. There should have been some mutual respect. The Republican legislators who pulled this out of their hat with no warning, and the elected commissioner of insurance. But the end result, I think, seems the fire safety experts who are most impacted. I've talked to Brian Taylor, the new state fire marshal officially, and I know that he has the people's best interest at heart. He won't be elected this way, but that department, the Office of State Fire Marshal, is still connected with and or under the Department of Insurance. And so it's important that we work together. That's why I wanted to reach out to Brian Taylor early and make that connection so that we understand each other moving forward and will support each other. Again, the way the legislature treats other electeds, including Democrats like me in the super minority now and in executive branch offices, is not always respectful. I'll put it that way. And it's unfortunate because we're supposed to all be serving the people and looking out for things like fire safety and building codes. But when they get mad, they do professional things that are not for the best of the people. And that's what I think, that's why they treated this change the way they did.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we are going to move right along to the next topic and question. I will be presenting the topic and the question. Senator Marcus, you will answer first, and Mr. Wheeler will answer second. This is a 2-minute question. Climate change impacts are felt all over North Carolina, but particularly among residents living on the coast and Outer Banks. Many people living there are natives whose families go back generations and have worked the waters and been part of the service industry. Many of them live in generational homes that are heirs' property. And at the same time, developers are building luxury homes in low-lying and fragile areas, and the proliferation of luxury builds require expensive repairs after storms. Here's the question. Insurance companies are pulling out of coastal areas, but those that stay are increasing rates far higher than long-time, less wealthy residents can afford. What can be done to bring the cost and coverage equity to traditional coastal populations who may lose their homes because of unaffordable insurance hikes? Do you want me to read the question again?
I think I got it. It's complicated, but I'm going to try to answer all that in, is it 2 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So glad first that you brought up climate change, because some people, I think some voters don't necessarily connect that issue to Commissioner of Insurance race. It's one of the reasons I want this job, because I care so deeply about the fact that we are not working on solutions to mitigate the harms of climate change. And it is, of course, as you said, most seen on our coast, although more and more in the inland low-lying areas that are subject to flood, and even farther near Charlotte where I live. So it's going to impact all of us. And there are things that the government can do and is already doing, and then we should be doing more. So some of the things we're already doing is establishment of the beach plan. I'm actually having a meeting this Thursday to learn in depth about that program. And it is basically an insurance of last resort for folks on the coast who could not otherwise afford or find a policy. We also have resiliency programs where we incentivize homeowners to put on a roof that won't blow off as easily in a hurricane, for example, and in some cases to not rebuild in the lowest flood-prone areas and instead use federal, sometimes state, to buy out those properties so that they can live somewhere that's not going to get flooded time after time after time. Of course, the bigger issue on all of this is, do we have an insurance commissioner who is looking out for the people to keep rates low as they possibly can? I don't think we do. He doesn't hold public hearings. There's no transparency. He just allows rates to go up 19 times, for example, during the short time that he has been insurance commissioner, and he is not working for the people. He used to work for insurance companies, so you know where his loyalties lie, and we need somebody that's going to make sure that the rates stay low for everybody, coastal as well as the rest of the state. And I think I am out of time, so I'm going to stop right there.
Actually, you were coming right up at it, but it was fine. And Mr. Wheeler, do I need to ask the question again for you, or do you have it?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you very much.
All right.
So climate change is real. I believe climate change is real, and it is affecting your insurance every day of the week. One of the first things I will do in January 2025 is I'm going to appoint a senior deputy commissioner for climate change. And we're also going to form a statewide task force that's going to focus on this issue solely, because it is a mess in Florida, and we do not want to become Florida for a lot of different reasons. We don't want to become Florida, but one of them is their insurance market is a mess. Right now, you can't get a insurance policy for your home. If you're a new policy owner, you have to go to a state-run plan similar to the beach plan, but a heck of a lot more expensive and not as easily attainable. The next thing I want to do is I want this task force to focus on how do we help low-income folks, people of color, the disabled, and seniors stay in their homes. Now, if they're in flood-prone areas, the senator's absolutely right. Let's work to buy them out of their homes, but put them in a similar home in the same community. We can't be uprooting people from their families. And the worst thing we could possibly do is nothing. And that's what's happening right now. Nobody in the legislature has taken this issue by the neck. And nobody in DOI, especially the commissioner, I can probably even spell climate change. So I'm a firm believer that climate change is absolutely connected to insurance policies. I want to put together this task force to come up with solutions to keep people in homes and ensure that we're not displacing the elderly, low income, or people of color.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, believe it or not, we only have one more question left, and this is a candidate's choice question, and it will be presented by Michael Abasevich, who is our organizing director. It's a 2-minute question. Mr. Wheeler, you will go first. Senator Marcus, you will go last. Michael?
Mr. Wheeler, please use the next 2 minutes to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue central to your candidacy.
Well, it's one that's controversial. It's one that has not been raised in North Carolina, and it's one that I think is going to raise some eyebrows. Gun liability insurance. I believe the Commissioner of Insurance should be leading that charge on what does that look like for North Carolina. New Jersey just implemented a law. It hasn't been tested in the courts yet, but I believe we ought to look at instituting some sort of gun liability insurance in North Carolina. for gun owners, as well as property owners, because as many small business people know, if somebody comes in and there's an incident on your property involving guns and you were somehow negligent, there isn't really any insurance other than an overall liability policy to cover your liability in that situation. So I like broaching topics, bringing in the right people to talk them through and come up with solutions, not talk. And nobody is doing anything about this in North Carolina. Another thing that nobody's doing anything about, and it could lower the incidence of for example, what happened in court in Michigan today, where the mother was held liable for the gun that their son obtained and used in a school shooting. I firmly believe, after the research and the folks I've talked to, that gun liability insurance is something we ought to be doing in North Carolina. I'm having a online discussion with Fred Guttenberg, whose daughter Jamie was killed in Florida in a school shooting. And that's going to take place on February 12th. You can go to wheelernc.com, sign up for that link, and see Mr. Guttenberg and myself discuss this issue in depth.
Senator Marcus, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm happy to jump in. Thank you, Michael. I will mention that I agree that gun violence prevention is very important. It's something I've worked very hard on in the legislature and just introduced the Gun Violence Prevention Act, Senate Bill 210, that includes, among other ideas, requiring insurance for gun owners. So I've been in that fight and would continue to support ideas that would help reduce gun violence as insurance commissioner as well. Happy to be, every year I've run endorsed by the Moms Demand Action in Everytown for gun violence. But the issue that I want to talk about that I've touched on a little, but I want people to really understand is how negligent our current commissioner of insurance has been. He can react two ways when there is an insurance rate proposal to go up. Then the current one, by the way, is homeowners rates going up by an average of 42% statewide, as much as 99% on the coast. So he can react two ways. He can either, well, three ways. He can agree, which he never does because it's they ask for a lot, and then he gets them to come down a little and tells us all that we should be so grateful to him. Or he can make a private settlement, which is what he does. We don't know on what basis he sets the rate. We don't get to have any transparency. Or he can do what the Democratic Commissioner of Insurance have done, Jim Long, Wayne Goodwin, and that's hold a full public hearing so that we all can hear the evidence that insurance companies have to try to justify a rate hike. What do you pay your CEOs? What are your salaries, profits, claims paid, etc.? He has not done that at all during his 8 years in office. Today, he announced that he's going to hold a hearing finally, but he's done this before where he promises a hearing and then he delays it until after the election and then he cancels the hearing and has a private settlement. So let's not let him get away with this delay tactic again. Let's insist that he have a hearing way before the election so we, the voters, can hold him accountable if he sides with insurance companies and allows rates to go up yet again.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you. Really, really well done. Okay, so we are now coming to the end of this segment, and it will be time for closing statements. You will get 2 minutes to close out for the evening. I want to thank you both for being here this evening, and I want to commend you on your performance this evening. It's important that you are sharing what you plan to do, what your thoughts are with our stakeholders. I know that they find it very, very edifying. So for this evening, it seems that since Senator Marcus went first for the first topic, she will be able to have the last word. So we will hear first from Mr. Wheeler for his closing statement. Mr. Wheeler, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you all very much. I appreciate this opportunity to connect with voters. First of all, Senator Marcus, I did invite you to our topic on Monday. I've invited all the candidates and you're more than welcome to come. It's going to be a nonpartisan conversation and I'm sure you could add to the conversation. We'd be delighted to have you on that Zoom with us, with Mr. Guttenberg and myself. let's get real about this election. A lot is at stake. We all know that the Department of Insurance affects our lives, and we're learning more and more every day because of the incompetence of Rate Hike Mike. I've been in the race for a year. I've learned a lot from y'all. And what I've learned is that people are on the edge of panic about insurance rates, rightfully so. We can't become Florida, and no one in the General Assembly is doing anything about it. Nobody is pushing a bill out of committee. Nobody has come up with any new ideas or solutions. And I believe that as your Commissioner of Insurance, that will be one of my top priorities on day one. I intend to use my skills to convene folks and fixing problems across North Carolina and put a laser focus on solutions, not talk. The last thing we need right now is more gobbledygook from politicians about this issue, and 2 years later, nothing's happened. I'm going to include assistance for seniors, people of color, low-income folks, and I will work with the legislature on a bipartisan basis without selling my soul. I'm not going to become another Tricia Cotham. I'm making that commitment to y'all right now. I've learned the current Commissioner Rate Hike Mike is simply in over his head, and it's time for him to go. I've learned that people want change at DOI. They don't want the same old. And I'm fearful that if we put another attorney politician in this role, we will get mired up in politics. And I want action, and I'm committing to you tonight to be that person. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wheeler. All right, we're going to hear now from Senator Marcus. You have 2 minutes to make your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you for giving us time, and for everyone who's listening. I know this isn't the sexiest race on the ballot this year. A lot of people don't even know that we elect a Commissioner of Insurance, but I think it's, as these rates keep going up and up, it's more and more important that we focus on this. And I hope that you have in mind list and what you're looking for in a candidate for this important Council of State position. Maybe your checklist includes that you want someone with a proven record of working for you, someone who has shown up ethically and served the public for going on 6 years now, somebody who's able to break up the old boys network at the Department of Insurance. I have that, check. Maybe someone with the legal skills who's been able to litigate in a courtroom-like setting, like these public hearings that we need to have to cross-examine evidence from the insurance commissioners. Check, I've got that too. Somebody who knows that climate change is real and how it impacts rates and people's homes here in North Carolina. We've talked about that. Check. You want somebody who's running a positive, serious campaign that is raising the money and making the contacts and earning the endorsements that we're going to need to beat a Republican incumbent who is entrenched, not attacking fellow Democrats on Twitter, but focused on beating the Republican incumbent. Check. Somebody who has beat a Republican incumbent in the past and is well positioned to this year. Check. Someone who is endorsed by all the groups that my primary opponent and I have sought the endorsements of. They have endorsed my campaign. So AFL-CIO, Sierra Club, progressive and African-American groups in various cities across the state, all 7 Democratic members of Congress representing our state, over 50 state legislators, Lillian's List, and more. And so I check all those boxes. And I'm asking those of you who are listening today to check the box next to my name in the primary and the general. Natasha Marcus for Commissioner of Insurance.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Well, once again, thank you for being here this evening, taking time to be with us. This is, like I said earlier, not for the faint of heart. I know that when folks run, their families also run. So I hope you're taking time to take care of yourself. And as I've told everyone who came before you, please stay hydrated. It's really important. And hopefully you'll stick around and watch the rest of the forum this evening, because we have one more segment, and we will be rolling into the segment featuring our candidates for North Carolina Treasurer. I see that we have Representative Harris. I want to make sure there's Mr. Esparza. Fantastic. We're going to move right along. We're going to start with some introductions. We will hear about Mr. Esparza. I will present information about him, and then Nick will present information about Representative Harris. And I just want to go ahead and let you all know, when I drew names today, Mr. Esparza, You are the first person to speak, so you get to have the last word this evening when it comes to closing remarks. And I am getting ready to read your information. She says, anyway. Very happy you're here. All right, Gabe Esparza, a distinguished business leader and civic executive, comes from a family of resilient immigrants who sought freedom in the U.S., instilling in him the values of hard work and community service. Beginning with humble jobs in junior high, Gabe worked through college, valuing education as a path to freedom. His mentorship role started in school, focusing on helping first and second generation Latinos achieve success. In his corporate career, Gabe gained invaluable experience at Walt Disney Company and advanced at American Express, focusing on small business financing. His entrepreneurial spirit led him to co-lead Rapid SOS, revolutionizing the 911 emergency system with innovative technology. As a senior official at the U.S. Small Business Administration since 2021, Gabe has been pivotal in managing a significant loan portfolio, facilitating export stimulus grants, and championing small businesses and global trade, stimulating U.S. exports and job creation. Dedicated to giving back, Gabe co-founded a school for at-risk kids, served on several boards, and contributed as a public official. Residing in Charlotte with his family, he continues to be an integral part of the community with vast potential, embodying a life committed to public service and economic development. Hi, Gabe.
Hi there. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Awesome. Yes, got my theater voice on. All right, now we're going to hear from Nick Long. He's going to introduce Representative Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wesley Harris is running for state treasurer. A native of rural North Carolina, the son of a lifelong public school teacher and a local banker, Wesley graduated from UNC with a degree in economics, then received his PhD in economics with a focus on public finance from Clemson University. After returning to North Carolina to work as an economic consultant, Wesley was elected to the North Carolina House in 2018, flipping a seat and helping to break the Republican supermajority. Now in his third term, he is the only PhD economist in the legislature. Wesley has been the lead Democrat on every finance and economic issue to come before the General Assembly. Wesley is running for state treasurer to make sure that we have a treasurer and a state government that invests in the most valuable asset we have, our people. Wesley's key goals for the treasurer's office are: 1, improving the performance of our pension plan; 2, investing in and promoting preventative care and wellness programs through the state health plan to help lower costs and increase benefits; and 3, working with local government commission to help our municipal governments manage their finances and make the critical investments needed for our communities.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, Wesley Harris. We're glad that you're here this evening.
Great to be with y'all. Thank y'all.
Yeah, so we're going to roll right into the 1-minute opening statements that the two of you can make, and we're going to start. I started to say with Senator Marcus, but we already spoke to her. We're going to start with Mr. Esparza, and he's going to have 1 minute, and then after that, we'll hear from Representative Harris. So, Mr. Esparza, are you ready?
Yes. All righty. Well, thank you so much, and good evening, Wake County. It's wonderful to be with you here tonight. My name is Gabe Esparza. I am running for North Carolina State Treasurer. I come from a union family. I'm so proud to have earned the endorsement of the AFL-CIO. That really provided the foundation of the values in my life and my family. And I went on, as was mentioned, to earn a degree from Stanford and later from Harvard for my MBA. And that set the foundation for a very successful 25-year career in the private sector. But I've chosen to make a transition into public service. I was very honored to have the President and the White House invite me to serve as an official in the U.S. Small Business Administration. And so I bring all of that experience to the table here. Experience matters in this race because you want somebody who knows how to manage a large organization, who knows how to go toe-to-toe with other corporate interests, and who can do managing money as the fundamental core aspect of the job. I have a track record of results, created 20,000 jobs around the nation. I've increased minority
Thank
supplier
you, Mr.
relationships.
Esparza. Thank you
Yep.
very
And
much.
I want to deliver that for North Carolina. Thank you so
All
much.
right, all right, down. Okay, now we're going to hear from Representative Wesley Harris. Representative Harris, you have 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you so much, Wake County Democrats, for doing this forum for us. I'm running for state treasurer because we need to get our financial house in order in this state. We need a state treasurer who understands North Carolina, who has been in the General Assembly, understands the financial workings of our state, so that we can advocate for our state employees and advocating for making the investments in our community. Since I've been in the legislature, we have seen our Republican leadership squander every financial opportunity we've had. And we're going to be in a world of hurt in the next couple of years. And so we need someone that's going to increase our pension plan so we can make those investments in our state employees, so we can recruit the best and brightest of the state employees and invest in every single corner of this state. I grew up in rural North Carolina, and I am where I am because the state of North Carolina invested in me, because the state of North Carolina believed in me. And we need to bring that opportunity back to every single corner of this state. And I look forward to the conversation tonight.
Why, thank you very much. Okay, well done, both of you. We are going to move into our topics and our questions, and you may have picked up on the drill. Just a quick reminder, if you hear that timer go off and you're in the middle of a sentence, not a paragraph, but a sentence, please do finish that. The first topic has to do with motivation for running. It is a 2-minute topic. John McLam, our second vice chair, will be presenting the question for you. And let's see here, Mr. Esparza, you're going to kick us off. John, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2 minutes or less, please tell us why you decided to run for North Carolina Treasurer. Specifically, what are your motivations and priorities?
Thank you, John. This, first of all, starts with believing in public service. I believe in public service. It's nice to have a corporate career and make money, but I believe in public service and giving back to North Carolina. And that's largely because here in North Carolina, state employees and retirees are getting a raw deal. The pay is low for state employees. The poor performance of the pension fund has meant that our benefits are at risk, and healthcare benefits are also being eroded. Now, of course, not even available to new state employees that are starting. So it's painful to me to see all of this, and I want to be able to turn that around. And you need somebody who's an experienced fighter, somebody who's been able to, again, manage teams, negotiate big deals, and manage money. And so I want to bring that track record of results, having delivered jobs, having created businesses, having raised money, having invested money, created value. I want to bring all of that experience and work to bear here in North Carolina. And so it's important to me that this job, one that is as business oriented as you can get in the government, has somebody who has business experience, leadership experience. And so ultimately together, we're going to deliver results and improve the lot, not only for state employees and retirees, but all North Carolinians.
My turn. Thank you all. Yeah, my motivations for running for this are, I come from a family that believes in public service. My mom was a lifelong, as the intro said, my mom was a lifelong public school teacher, and my dad was a local banker. You want to know why I'm running for treasurer? Put your hands together. A banker and a state employee. That is the job of state treasurer. And since I've been in the legislature, I have seen firsthand the squandering of financial opportunities we've had, and I've seen how our current treasurer has poisoned the well of making us able to make the investments we need to be able to make in our state. We have a hiring crisis for state employees. We have almost a 25% vacancy rate of state employees in North Carolina, and it's not hard to see why. Our pay is lagging behind almost everything, and state employees will never be able to compete with the private sector on pay, and so we got to compete with benefits. And so we're seeing our pension plan not keep up with market averages. And so we're not getting a cost of living adjustment for our retirees. And so they're on fixed income and they're losing money. And we're seeing our state health plan continue to cut benefits. And so I've seen that. And as a single member in the General Assembly, you can only do so much. But as a state treasurer, we can go around the state and show people what is happening. In our state, 61 out of our 100 counties, the largest employer is a state entity, and state employees are the largest employer. So we got to make sure we can invest in our economy, invest in our people, and make sure they have those, because that is why I'm running for this. So we can go around the state and show people what is happening, show people these financial decisions this Republican leadership are making, why it's making their property taxes go up, why it's making their investments go down, so that we can hold our elected officials accountable and build that geographic coalition that Democrats need to not only win a statewide race, but have that filter down to our legislature so we can finally get back to governing North Carolina the way that we know it should be governed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well done, both of you. All right. We're now going to move on to topic 2. The topic has to do with the state health plan. This is a 2-minute question. Representative Harris is going to answer it first, and Nick Long, our first vice chair, is going to present the question.
Representative Harris, the state treasurer also serves as head of the state health plan. The most recent treasurer has proposed moving the state health plan from Blue Cross and Blue Shield to another provider. What do you think of this decision, and how would you determine who services the state health plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so this was a complicated decision. And so after it was made, we moved from Blue Cross to Aetna. I talked to a lot of people, talked to a few folks in the governor's office, and it was actually a pretty unanimous decision on the board of trustees for the state health plan. And so I think people were just kind of tired of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They weren't as responsive as some folks needed them to be in terms of negotiating them and administering the plan. And so they decided it was time for a change. And so that change is happening. And so it's up to us to make sure that as it's being implemented, we do whatever we can. And so when we're looking for someone to administer this plan, the big thing we got to focus on is that customer service. It is making sure that we're able to work together and have that open dialogue so we know what's happening. And the other thing is making sure that they have a footprint in North Carolina. That's the big issue that's coming with Aetna, because Blue Cross and Blue Shield was in North Carolina. They've been in North Carolina and they have those existing relationships. And so one of the things that is still a little uncertain, again, we're getting feedback month by month and it seems to be going well, is that Aetna didn't have a huge footprint in North Carolina. And so as they're starting to negotiate with the hospitals of who's in network, who's out of network, the hospitals know that Aetna needs them more than they need Aetna. And that could change the bargaining aspects of that. And so it's going to be critical. Again, a lot of this is going to be done before I take office next January. But the big thing is going to be to make sure that we have those working relationships, and that if there are any holes in those coverage, so any of our state employees whose primary care physicians may not be able to go, that we have a provider and we have an administrator that has a broad network so that we can cover every single state employee. And if they aren't covered for some reason, we find a very quick fix to that starting early next year, so that they do not have a halt in coverage and they can continue to have that coverage and quality healthcare and quality benefits.
Thank you, Representative Wheeler. Mr. Esparza, the same question. Would you like for me to repeat it?
No, I've got it, Nick. Thank you. So let me start out by saying that the decision to drop Blue Cross for Aetna is highly suspect. And this is because most government contracts, when they go out to bid, the RFP says that the winner for government contracts is typically going to be the low-cost provider. Well, interestingly enough, the bid that Aetna put forth was not the low-cost provider, and it also had worse coverage than Blue Cross. And so it is highly suspect. And for that matter, Blue Cross has actually sued the state and sued the treasurer's office, and that litigation continues today. In fact, the remedy that Blue Cross has asked for is not that they immediately be given the business back, but that simply it's a do-over of the process. And depending on how long this litigation goes on, it is very likely that the next treasurer will be in charge of redoing the process. So that's something that's important to keep our eye on. In the meantime, I am going forward as if Aetna is going to be the new provider. And so every day out on the campaign trail, I tell people, go tell your doctor today that Aetna is coming. Because the last thing we want to have happen is that somebody shows up to their doctor in January of 2025 and their doctor says, sorry, I used to take Blue Cross, I don't take Aetna, you're out of luck. As a result of that, my first day on the job, we will set up a rapid response team, and that will provide an opportunity for anybody who's come up with that situation to be able to find a doctor that will take Aetna and be able to service their needs. Second, we'll be able to work with their preferred doctor to bring them on Aetna as quick as possible. And we will also have sort of corporate communications or a broad public communication set up so that we can talk to the public about these issues as well. Lots of big issues to deal with.
All right, thank you so much. Well done, both of you. We're going to go ahead and move on to topic 3. And for this topic, Mr. Sparza, you are going to kick us off. We will hear from John McClam, our second vice chair. The topic has to do with North Carolina's financial portfolio. This is a 2-minute question. John, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reflecting on North Carolina's financial portfolio and how the current treasurer is managing it, what's working, what needs improvement, and what needs to be changed altogether? How will you implement improvements and changes?
Thank you, John. Let me begin by saying the starkest of warning to everybody in North Carolina, that this pension fund and this treasurer is the worst performing pension fund in the United States over the last 5 years. That is 50th out of 50. There's a Yale management study that cites all of the investment returns. It is the worst performing fund in the country. As a result of which, he is not able to meet the obligations of our liabilities or all the money that's required to pay out to retirees today. And the ways in which we can fill that gap is either an extra appropriation from the legislature or ask each of the relative state agencies that are paying into the fund, hospitals and police departments and schools and so forth, to pay more. In either of those solutions, taxpayers are footing the bill for this treasurer's lack of performance. The primary reason for the lack of performance is that this treasurer is heavily invested in cash, about $16 billion in cash, about 14% of the fund. It was way too much. And so we need to put that money to work. That money sitting in cash is an opportunity cost. It is a lost opportunity to put that into higher returning investment vehicles. So at the beginning of the term, not only are we going to start investing in cash, we're going to go through what's called an asset allocation study to determine how the market has performed over the last several years and determine where exactly we want to allocate those resources. But you better believe that not only we will put that money to work, we will likely put it to work in those vehicles that have returned the most over the last 5 years, including alternatives and real assets and other important vehicles that have a much higher return. So a lot of work to do there, an important job, but the alarm bells are ringing that this is a very underperforming fund.
Thank you. Representative Harris, same question to you. Would you like it repeated?
No, thank you. No, I got it.
Right.
And yeah, I'll follow up on that. Our pension plan has done terrible. To give you an example of how terrible it is, in the last fiscal year, the S&P 500 had about an 11% return over the last year. Our pension plan, 5.3% return. We're having a less than half the return that the market is, and that's why we can't get cost of living adjustments, because we're not getting those returns. And as Gabe said, we have way too much in cash, and so we got to invest that. Again, our pension plans over $100 billion, and if we're right at 13 to 14% cash, when most other places have it around 2% cash, that's over $10 billion. And so that's almost more than $1 billion a year in potential returns we could be having that could, again, be reinvested every single year and make sure that we have those returns for our state employees. And so that's the critical piece. We just got to invest the money. And honestly, if we just invest that cash, our pension plan will perform pretty close to what the rest of the market is doing. And so we don't have to get too crazy, because right now we are pretty heavily invested in index funds. And one of the big thing is the politicization of the investing. We've seen this in the General Assembly. In particular, they passed an anti-ESG bill this year that said you cannot look at anything that is not financial aspects of a bill. And so the General Assembly is trying to put their hands on to try to impact how we invest, but we got to invest in good companies. As I like to say, if a company does good, a company does well. And so we need to invest in companies that are high growth, and so that we're getting those returns, but then also ones that reflect our values as North Carolinians, because we don't want to have a portfolio of businesses that they may be helping our retirees, but they're businesses that are doing harm to North Carolinians and doing harm to our economy and our environment. And so we want to make sure that we have a portfolio that reflects our values and that gets those high returns so that we can provide the retirement that we promise our state employees and the retirement that they deserve.
Thank you so much. All right. We're coming to the final question for the segment and for the evening, actually. This is a 2-minute question. I'll be presenting it. We will hear from Representative Harris first, and then we'll hear from Mr. Garza. Representative Harris, please use the next couple of minutes to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue that is central to your candidacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Urban-rural divide and economic anxiety. I grew up in rural North Carolina. I grew up in real rural North Carolina, so rural that I had to be born in the county next door. And every opportunity I have is because I had a state government that invested in me, because I had a great public school, was able to go to a great public university in Carolina, and have every single door open to me. And what we're seeing right now across the state is we are seeing a widening chasm between our urban areas and our rural areas in terms of opportunity. And that is driving a lot of our political polarization. And a lot of that is how we're financing our government and why it's such a key role for the treasurer. As the chief financial officer of the state, it is critical that we go to every corner of this state and show them what is happening with our tax policy, show them what is happening with our financial policy. Again, we have been cutting taxes on the state level every year since I've been in office. And as we're doing that, benefits can't go and those services can't go away. And so we are pushing them down to the county level. And our county is having to fill those gaps. In Mecklenburg County alone, over 20% of our county budget is spent on things that the state should be providing. And that is causing a rise in property taxes. Last year, while we're cutting income taxes, 90 counties had to increase their property taxes per capita, including Wake County. In Wake County, about 25% of y'all's county budget is on things the state should be providing. And so we need a state treasurer to go in and say, listen, this is happening because the state is not doing their job. And if we talk to the voters about that, and we talk to the people around the state about this, they can hold their elected officials accountable so that we can make sure, because again, the wealthy counties are able to afford a lot of this, the poor counties aren't. And if your schools are falling down, if your hospitals are closing, if you don't have internet access, your opportunities go away. That's what's driving the radicalization in our country. That's what's driving this hate, this bigotry, this division, because they're losing opportunity. And so we got to be willing to invest in them and invest in these communities, bring that opportunity back, because that is the only way we're going to bring this country and this state together, save our economy and our democracy.
Thank you very much, Representative Harris. And next, Mr. Garza, do you want me to reread the question or do you have it?
I've got it, thanks.
All right.
All right, so I appreciate the conversation that we've been having tonight on policy. It is so important to dig in and understand things about the state pension fund, our healthcare plan, the local government commission, all of the things, including, by the way, the treasurer sits on the State Board of Education. Even matters of education are relevant to our discussion. But it's important for us to talk about the politics of the race as well, in that all of us here tonight are very likely already going to be assumed voters. And the challenge for Democrats is that there are not enough Democrats to elect us by ourselves with only Democratic votes. We need to be reaching out to moderate and unaffiliated voters, let alone some crossover Republican voters. And the question is, where are we going to find these new voters? And so I think it's important for you all to think about who can get elected in November. And so I present to you two other ways to think about it in my case. Number one is I've shared with you, I have a business background. I have, in effect, very centrist credentials when it comes to business, public safety based on the 911 technology company that you heard about at the beginning of this presentation. And the other piece is that as a Mexican American, as a Latino, I'm going to be able to bring out net new voters, Latino voters who have a history of underperformance at the polls by speaking in Spanish language markets and Spanish language channels, being out in my community and Latino communities around the state. And this is important not only because it gets us to the finish line when you add net new Latino voters, but it also means representation matters. There are 1.2 million Latinos in this state and 0 Latinos in the General Assembly, none in our congressional delegation, none in the governor's cabinet, and of course, none in the Council of State. In fact, I would be the first Latino elected statewide.
Thank
We want to
you.
bring out as
Thank
many
you,
new
Mr.
people as we can.
Esparza. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right. We have come to the end of the segment, and we are going to go into the closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes to make your closing remarks. Before we go any further, thank you so much for being here this evening. I can't believe that this is where we are at the end of this forum, which I feel like has been really great. So first up, we will hear from Representative Harris, and then second, we will hear from Mr. Esparza. And again, you get 2 minutes. Representative Harris, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you so much, Wake County. Thank you so much, Kevin, for doing this. I'll actually disagree with my colleague, Senator Marcus. This is the sexiest race on the ballot this year, and I'm so glad y'all stuck until the end of it. I am so excited about what we're going to be able to accomplish with this. We are running the strongest treasurer's campaign this state has seen in a very long time. And we have seen that with the endorsements that this campaign has got and the money this campaign has been able to run. I have been endorsed by 72 Democratic state legislatures, current and former, 90 current and former local elected officials around the state, and 8 current and former members of Congress, including our entire current Democratic congressional delegation in North Carolina right now. In addition, I've been endorsed by the North Carolina Association of Educators and the State Employees Association. We talked a lot about those are the 2 groups that depend most on this treasurer's office because it's their pension plan and it's their health plan, and they have chosen to endorse me. And what is even bigger about this, we are the first treasurer's candidate since before 2008 to have both the Teachers Association and the State Employees Association endorsement. The state employees have gone Republican the past couple of years, and that's been a key reason why we have not been able to win this race. So if you want to talk about crossover appeal, we've got it. The fact that I grew up in rural North Carolina, understand the rural dynamics, understand those investments, we can make that connection across this state and build that geographic coalition to win this race. And I've been so honored by those endorsements. And last year, we raised more money than any non-incumbent treasurer's candidate has ever raised in North Carolina history in the off year. We raised over $330,000, 1,500 individual donations. You add up all the donations to every treasurer race, every treasurer candidate in 2020, it was just over $1,000. We got 1,700 donations. So we are building the strongest treasurer's race we've seen in a while across the state. We can win this, and I hope I can have your support in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Now we will hear from Mr. Esparza. Mr. Esparza, you've got 2 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you again to all the organizers and to all of you in Wake County. I'm not surprised that my opponent has gathered some of the endorsements that he has. He's the insider. Everybody knows him based on his time in the assembly. But it's important to paint the contrast when it comes to experience and the ability to get the job done. This is a job. It's a big job. First of all, you manage almost 500 people. I've managed big, large matrix organizations. My opponent has never managed people in his life. Secondarily, I've negotiated big deals going toe-to-toe with corporate interests. My opponent has never done that. And most importantly, I have managed money, whether that's for the federal government and raising capital for venture capital and new startups, or extending credit to Americans at American Express over 13 years. And my opponent has never managed money. In fact, he admitted as such on an NPR radio hit the other day, in which he was pressed. Have you ever managed directly money? He goes, no, never managed money. And it's interesting that he brings up his fundraising prowess, when in fact, if you look at the campaign finance reports, we ended the year with more cash on hand. And this is because my opponent blew through half of his money already on fancy consultants. How can North Carolinians expect that he would manage $100 billion pension fund adequately when he cannot even manage his own campaign funds? So what North Carolina needs, it needs somebody with experience. It needs somebody with a track record of delivering results. And I want to bring all of that to you. Simply, I will end with one other mention of an endorsement. There's one endorsement that matters in Wake County, and that is my good friend, the former chairman of the Wake County Commission, Sig Hutchinson, who has gladly endorsed me in this race. So I look forward to working with all of you, getting out there in Wake County and vote Gabe Esparza here on March 5th. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Esparza. Okay, so both of you have stepped up to the plate. We appreciate you. We know you're running like mad. There's a bunch of things going on. It's not easy to do, so know that you are magnificent, and we're glad that you're here. And as I've told everyone this evening who's running, stay hydrated, take care of yourself. It's not easy out there, but we do appreciate you. And on that note, we are going to wrap up for the evening. I would like to thank the several people who assisted with tonight's forum. Wesley Knott, our executive director, Michael Abasevich, our organizing director, Nick Long, our first vice chair, Ambrosia Sharkey, our Wake Regional Vice Chair, John McLam, our second vice chair, and Laura Cowball, our treasurer. So thank you all. Please take a gander at our upcoming events. We are having our 44th annual Valentine's Day fundraiser on the 13th, 6:30 to, it says 8:03 p.m., but what that means is 8:30 at the NC State Club. We do have tickets and sponsorships available. We have Anderson Clayton is our keynote speaker. We will be honoring a bunch of really amazing volunteers, and there will be a ton of candidates there that evening. So we do have sponsorships available. Also, don't forget about the North Carolina primary that's coming up. Early voting begins on February 15th. It ends on March 2nd. And then it will be election day will be on March 5th. We have our 2024 precinct annual meetings all over the state. It takes place on February 17th. That is a DNC rule. Sorry, friends, not our choice, but make sure you're getting to your precinct organizing meetings so you can elect delegates to convention and have a say in who our DNC members or our members are and who our folks who our electors are. So that's where you get to have a say. So make sure you do that. And finally, our county convention, we are having an evening approvals meeting on the 15th to expedite our business, and March 16th, 10:30 a.m. full convention, a lot of stuff happening. And a lot of you are probably ready to be done with this evening. I know I am. I'm going to go have some supper, but thank you all for being here this evening and have a great night. Bye.